that drove you?
Yeah, it wasn't a straight desire to have a business and run it. I just saw a huge need in this town and want people to get help and not have to wait 15 minutes for EMS to get help when their loved one is hurting. But if you're able to begin CPR immediately when someone collapses, you've got like a 90% chance of success. So, two is the most important part of class is being able to actually perform CPR and use an AED at the end of class. They've removed like all the testing, like how many compressions per minute and all those stuff, because you practice it, so you actually have muscle memory and you know it. You don't need to know the numbers in your head. I think when people have to go through all that extra thinking, it makes them slower to react in the moment, so they may delay starting.
Okay.
The one thing that I really love and all my students love is that now that there's no test for lay rescuer CPR and AED, or written test, there's zero anxiety coming into the class. They're just there for the education. They don't even realize they're being tested when they're being tested, because it's all practical rather than pen to paper. I realize you'd rather be doing something else right now, but in the rare chance you need this, your coworker will be coming back to work in a couple of weeks versus you going to a funeral in a couple of weeks. So it's definitely worthwhile to know. And even if it's not a coworker, you say maybe it'll be your spouse or your parent or your child, neighbor. So
yeah, it really, who do you spend more time with? So I'd say you're more likely than not going to have somebody that you're close with.
Right, yeah.
Affected.
Yeah. Statistically, it's like 80% of the out-of-hospital cardiac arrests occur in the home.
No doubt.
If you're not at work, you're at home.
Okay, fair enough. And that's part of the certification that you give to other businesses or organizations.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Are they really required by law? I don't know.
Most businesses are not. The only construction industry is required per OSHA, logging industry, the linemen that climb our poles and keep our lights on are, which makes sense. Yeah, some of those dangerous jobs, it's good to have that. But us regular office folks are not required, which is unfortunate, especially the larger big box stores that have thousands of people through them a day. When you have that many people through, you have a very good chance of having an incident in your store.
Inevitably,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I guess really it's a very small amount of time or price to pay. I mean, how much is your kid, your friend, your parents' life worth to you?
Yeah.
Well, so have you ever seen somebody drown?
Yes.
What's the difference then? So from reviving somebody that drowned to cardiac arrest at home, say?
Drowning, the most important part is making sure you get them out of the water as soon as possible. And when you're beginning CPR, you want to make sure that there's not too much water in the lungs. So we sometimes tip the head to the side and make sure to drain out some water.
Okay, is that because of pressure and damaging something?
No, but any of the water that would come out of their mouth could have been in their lungs, and if you have water in the lungs, you can't get air exchange in the lungs.
Sure. Okay. I had a instance. It was ironic enough. It was a nursing get together. It was winter, and they had an indoor pool, and that was a young kid, and there were a number of nurses quickly in the water, and but to see that, so I though was so young, I could say maybe 4, but it was real.
Mm-hmm.
It stuck with me. Apparently.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Having come, say you don't really know how long someone's been unresponsive.
Well, that can get into a tricky situation.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
For adults, what we're looking to do is, as soon as we see someone collapse, we take the phone out of our pocket, which 98% of us have all the time now. Put our phone on speaker, dial 911, and then start compressions.
Okay, so phone, so to have help coming is from what I've come to understand.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to like,
If you don't have help coming, you're going to be doing this a long
you
time.
could be very tired
Yeah.
doing compressions and say, I understand if you're relieved by appropriate authority that it can call the time, declare death. I know that. I'm not the one, right?
Right, yeah. If you begin CPR, you'd want to continue CPR until help arrived or until you felt you couldn't physically do it anymore. Which,
It's a long time.
depending on who you are,
Gosh.
I mean, there are some people that are physically unable to do compressions for more than a couple minutes. And in that case, you might not have the best scenario, which is why making sure that the 911 has been activated.
Dispatched, yeah.
Yeah, that's the most important part.
I think that was stressed the most even when I was first learning. It was, one, they told you you're going to break ribs. And that for some people...
Yep, you will break ribs. And I always used to tell the story that it kind of sounds like when you've got a big bowl of Rice Krispies and you pour milk on it. And you can hear little snaps and pops. But my daughter says that it's more like you take a big batch of spaghetti noodles and you just slowly crack them. And I said, well, that's a good one too. And it kind of sounds a little bit cross in between maybe. But the one thing you have to remember is broken ribs heal. Death doesn't.
You do pull out the stops when it comes to your heart.
Right.
Like it's a kind of an all or nothing game.
Right,
game there.
Without a heart, we have no life.
So I totally forgot where the question that I had was going. So tell me a little more, as it were, like I won't ask you to go into a whole lot of detail, but if you were to say, like, you crash 3 things to remind people that have already been familiar in the past with CPR, what's changed maybe too?
Yeah, I think the most important aspects of CPR now are the compressions, to make sure that you're compressing 2 inches deep into the chest, which is, if you pull out a ruler, a lot more than you think it is. And that you're going at the correct speed, which is 100 to 120 per minute, which American Heart loves to say is the same beat as Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. So,
Yeah.
So if you can get that beat in your head and just compress at that rate, you are doing awesome.
That's a difficult thing, I would imagine. It's hard for me to say how I did, because I was in the middle of it, right? But
Right.
I have been relieved, had somebody there, and I reminded them that she's not a balloon. Slow it down. You don't need to blow her.
Right.
Blow her up.
And that's one excellent point about the breaths when we're giving our 2 breaths after our 30 compressions.
30 now, huh?
Yeah, we're up to 30 compressions now.
Okay.
So more time on the compressions because you got to keep the heart going and blood moving, and then breaths have not fallen by the wayside, but have been deemed less important in the first few minutes after you see somebody collapse. Like the first 3 to 5 breaths are a little bit less. But when we do give breaths, we just want to barely see the chest rise.
Okay.
If you fill up the lungs all the way, you can still push air in, but there's nowhere for it to go in the lungs. So what it sometimes does is it ends up going down into the belly. So then the belly gets bigger and bigger, like the balloon you were talking about.
Literally.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at some point
Oh
it's not gonna pop, but it's just gonna come out the same way that you blew it in.
Yeah.
And then you end up with stomach contents.
Nice. That
Yeah,
would
it
just
can-
add to
Yeah.
already a good situation.
Right, yeah. Then you have one more problem to deal with, which didn't
Goodness.
have to happen.
Now you're choking.
Yes.
For real.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, man. Okay, well, that's valuable. I guess really pay attention to that, maybe.
Yeah.
A little.
So compressions,
Okay.
harder and faster than we've done in the past. And
Okay.
breaths are now
Every 30.
every 30, yep.
2 of
And
them.
they are and two, yeah, and lighter, and just to barely see the chest rise.
So I guess really, I was hoping maybe you had like one more thing as far as a statistic, but generally.
I have some statistics.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I like statistics.
What kind of statistics are you looking for?
So
today?
after, say, your 5-minute mark, I haven't had to go, a whole lot further. Let's say, at what point do you see a massive decrease in your likelihood of making it eventually?
I would say around 5 or 10 minute mark. Yeah. If CPR isn't started immediately, brain death will start to occur within 5 minutes. If you begin CPR, you're just pushing that number or that time frame out just a little bit. If EMS can get there within American Heart would like to say 3 to 4 minutes, help will arrive. Living in the UP, we know that's not a thing. Even in the city of Marquette, the average response time is closer to 5 to 7 minutes. So we're already pushing the envelope. If you're not willing to begin CPR and you're only willing to call 911, you're likely not going to be doing anything positive.
Productive.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And on the flip side, if you can begin CPR immediately, and if your business or even your home has an AED and you can put an AED on and use the AED within the first minute, it's a 90% success rate.
That's really high. That's almost worth the $2,000 investment.
Right, yeah. Small investment for a 90% chance. And if you follow the NFL, we've been using Damar Hamlin. He's been promoting this with his life.
I mean, like now even he goes around and makes it clear that this is valuable.
He's actually an American Heart Association personality now, and he's got everybody in the NFL, all the teams are doing outreach and making sure people get trained, because when he collapsed on the field, they immediately started CPR. They had an AED right there, shocked him, and I mean, he's playing this year.
Really?
That's crazy.
Wow. That is.
To be dead on the field, and then the next season you're already back out there. And
it almost killed me. It didn't actually.
Yeah.
Going back.
He's one of those people that can say it almost killed me.
Oh my goodness, that was Buffalo. What team?
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's a little ways away, but wouldn't it be cool to connect with somebody like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Just raising awareness.
Well, and even locally, we have a credit union with a bunch of branches over the UP who had a board member that had a cardiac arrest and was saved by an AED.
At work?
No, while he was working out at a fitness center.
Oh, wow.
And because of that experience, he's like, these are actually important. So the credit union decided to purchase an AED for every single one of their locations, with the hope that they will never have to use them. But if they do, they know that it's
effective.
It's effective.
It's more than looking good.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. It's only effective though if you know where to find it and you know how to use it.
Yeah, and that's a thing that we struggle with in Marquette County and nationwide, really, is knowing where they are available. Most people have a sticker on the door or a sign above the AED that alerts you to where it is. But you have to be observant, and you have to know that they're there. Situational
awareness, if you could maybe take note of that. I'm sure you do when you come.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's all I see when I walk into buildings is where are the fire extinguishers, do the emergency exit lights work, and where's the AED? And if there is an AED, then I go up close to it and make sure that there's a light on the AED indicating that it's ready for use. That's one thing that some people I guess in a lot of society, you buy something and you just expect it to always work.
Yeah.
And you know, anything electronics, that's not going to happen. You know, we're on this kick in the United States about buying a phone every year or two. You don't have to do that with an AED, but you do have to make sure that the battery is working, still holding a
something.
charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose like the smoke detector, you at some point maybe should just check in and say hi.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like blow those spider webs up.
Right, yep. Yep, we're supposed to press that button once a month.
Oh.
We probably don't. I can't say that even I do. There are products out there now, not that I'm would steer you in that direction, but there are products that do self-checks every month
Huh.
internally, so that's kind of nice.
My mind immediately goes, that must be annoying.
It's not so bad. It's just a quick little beep.
Okay.
So it must have a microphone in there along with the speaker, so it just beeps and the microphone picks up that, yep, sound works, good to go.
I wonder what occurs when, I understand there's something, right? It lets you know when your battery's no longer holding.
Yeah, for an AED, when the battery is on its last legs,
It tells you?
it beeps like a smoke detector, and
Okay.
it's annoying for a few days. So
It's hard to.
the hope is that, yeah, that's not on a long weekend or something crazy like that. But if you have an AED, just like if you've got a safety officer, you just have them go through that check once a month, just like we're supposed to do with our fire extinguishers, which I know doesn't happen all the time either. This whole proactive thing is hard to do. We just expect things to be there and ready when we need them, but in order for them to be ready, we have to ensure that they're ready. We have